Hello and welcome to Trust TV. I'm Marcus De Silva. We've got to get on to COVID-19, coronavirus. What do you think the impact on the Trust will be?
Well, it's so difficult to know. We're probably, 2 months into this now. Started off being an Asian issue, now it's a global issue. I think initially the markets were a little blasé about the impact, and you saw that markets actually rallied, and actually the US reached highs even when Asia was selling off as a result of the virus, because it was seen initially as a supply issue. Clearly there wasn't anybody working in China, so they weren't producing product, and that was really going to affect China and nowhere else. But now it's actually a demand issue. People aren't going out, they aren't spending, and that's a worldwide issue. For us within the Trust, we don't have much exposure to manufacturing, so the companies that we own, although not all of the workers are back at work, it's not nearly as depleted as some of the labor-intensive manufacturing companies. There is going to be a hit to earnings. I think that's inevitable. But from what China's doing in response to this, and the money they're printing and the measures they're taking, and the fact that China seems to be over the worst of it now, we actually think that the recovery will be pretty decent in the second half of the year.
Should we be worried about the political instability in China off the back of this?
I don't think so. There was quite a lot of criticism of the government and how they handled it initially, but that seems to have died down a bit. I think the reasons being is that now the Chinese people can see what's happening to the rest of the world, and that actually now China has come over the hump, if you like, of the worst of the virus. Then people are actually seeing that actually maybe the government didn't do a bad job in containing this. It was quite draconian, as pictures on the news will show you, people being dragged out of houses, etc. But I think it clearly worked. And as a result of that, I don't think that the political situation will be impacted at all by the virus. I mean, there's other issues with politics in China, but the virus I don't think is a catalyst for anything.
And it's still a pretty stable foothold there in China, basically, politically.
Absolutely, absolutely. The government will do whatever it takes to maintain the stability of the party and the fact that they rule in China. Most people agree with it, and actually the popularity of Xi Jinping is very high, more so than Donald Trump, unsurprisingly.
Over the next 10 years, what are your plans for the Trust? Where are you now? Where do you want to be? And how are you going to get there?
What a good question. I mean, obviously, we have plans for the Trust, but clearly any strategic plans are the domain of the board rather than me as the manager. But I think between us, we would like to see the Trust bigger. It would help in terms of managing our fees and the costs of managing this kind of portfolio. We've also had a change in our shareholder base over the last few years, so we have much more retail-orientated investor and platform-based rather than the wealth managers, which we've had in the past. I'd like to be able to think in the future we'd be able to get our message across to these retail investors maybe a bit better than we do now. And I suspect that trend continues. So I'd like us to be bigger, and I'd like us to be able to have more contact with our client base.
What about sustainability and the way you're implementing new technology to get the best out of what's available in the world?
Sustainability, or ESG in general, is obviously a very hot topic. Now in Asia, probably people aren't as focused on ESG as they are in the Western world. Asia's at different stages of development. In some ways it would be a little unfair to put developed market ESG standards on emerging markets. But from our perspective, we take a slightly different view and say we're not going to invest. We don't say we're not going to invest in materials or commodities or these kind of companies. But when we do invest, we want to be in the companies that are enacting change. Because in reality, let's face it, if we didn't burn coal for energy, then all the lights would go off, and that's kind of not what we want. ESG is all about going from A to Z, but in my opinion, it's not going to happen overnight, and we need to be in the companies that are enacting the change, making incremental improvements in the environment over time. And that's how we look at the sustainability of the companies we invest in.
Thank you very much, Mike.
Thanks.